So I'm an engineer. I'm a technical person. Just a short introduction. I spent the last 5 years building Falcon.io, which is a software as a service product based in Copenhagen. It's a social media management platform. And I started as an individual contributor. I was coding. I'm a backend engineer, Java in particular. Later on, or from the beginning, I was sort of an informal leader, and that has been formalized later in my tenure in Falcon.io. I was director of engineering, if the title means something. I recently went solo. I'm trying to set up my own business, which is a little bit, I'm trying to figure out what I'm actually going to do. So it's early days, but that brings that I'm reflecting a lot. Not that I'm not doing that anyways, but this time of my life is definitely about looking back, gathering some learnings. And this talk is going to be a byproduct of that process. So just a little bit of a context. This is how the product team grew in Falcon. So this is where I started, May 2011. We were 3 guys. Actually, that's 3 includes the CEO. So that was 2 engineers and 1 CEO. And 2 years fast forward, we are still just 4-ish. That was the point where we hired the first head of R&D, we called it. So that guy, Dennis, a good colleague of mine, started scaling the organization. Around here, or a little bit before that, our founding was also in place, so there was plenty of room to scale. As you can see, October 2013, we are like 15, 16-ish, which was definitely a change compared to being 2 or 3, but it was still very much unorganized. We were just doing one little project after the other project, and basically this is the first point where we started scaling immensely. Engineers were coming on board, and definitely we were learning a lot of things while we were doing it. As you can see, we were growing forward. This is where I took over, basically running the technical engineering team at Falcon Social. And then I stopped it a year ago. I went on paternal leave, and then I came back, and I sort of figured that I want to do something else. So the first habit or the first takeaway I want to talk about is I want to put it as over communication is king. Now what do I mean by that? Certainly communication is better than no communication, but I say that communicating more is always better than communicating just on a normal scale. But and what does this mean? Having more meetings? Definitely no. So that's not the answer. It's more that when you talk to a person, you can never be sure of their background. Especially in a scaling team, you don't know if that person, where does this person come from? What does he or she know? Did she learn the same frameworks as you did? So basically, every time you talk to someone, you try to bridge the gap between your knowledge and her knowledge, and basically arriving at a conclusion together, and not just assuming some knowledge which might not be there, which might lead to misunderstandings, or maybe you could come off as cocky or very chauvinist or all kinds of things. So it could be very important when you talk to new employees, as I highlighted. Maybe that person didn't drink the same Kool-Aid as you did. We were in-house, we were very much talking about DDD, microservices, all the technical lingo, and basically I just noticed myself talking to new engineers who might come on board to the company. In 2 minutes, we were like talking about jargon which somebody might not even know. So that was definitely not a way how you invite somebody into your organization. But it's also true talking to other departments like support. Typically, those are non-technical people, and engineers are not especially good at talking to non-technical people. Sometimes they are getting impatient or angry, or just simply calling the other non-competent and something like that. But at the end of the day, you will realize that that person has some skill set which you don't possess, and sometime later they will save your back from some pretty serious situation. So I'm very grateful to a lot of our support personnel. But even on your even on the team you are on, like engineers between each other, when they talk about APIs or when they talk about the release plan and all those things, if you assume some knowledge which is not there, you might end up in like misunderstandings, which could seriously affect your product, basically. So the very first thing you should do when you talk to a person, like, don't judge if they don't know something. Try to bridge this gap. Don't assume any knowledge. The only thing you should assume is goodwill, because everybody in the organization is there to basically move things forward. So it's all about empathy. Try picture yourself in the other person's shoes. Try figure out like what's her level of understanding about technical stuff or product stuff, and try just get to a common ground together. And this just generally leads into a very healthy organization and a very inclusive environment. So Falcon was a very diverse place. So the company language was English, and basically we had like 30 nationalities on staff, which is quite a place to be, and some people coming from even different continents and all the things. You could never be sure like how people communicate best and how people are behaving under certain situations. Now I like this one a lot. So the rule of 20 is, I read it in some book, I'm gonna tell you later. You need to say something at least 20 times, or like 20 times until people start to get it. First you say it, it's basically just noise. Nobody really listens to you. Maybe they have family issues, maybe they're just busy releasing something. Basically, if you say it one time, you should never expect that somebody understands or somebody really internalize that idea. A few more times, maybe they hear that you have something to say, maybe they should listen. But by the time you are basically completely sick of this message, that's the time when they start to get it. So basically, don't give up. Convincing people is very hard, and definitely don't be grumpy. So it happens oftentimes that not just engineers, we are people that we send an email like very angry, very long at the end of the day, and the next day we see somebody still not following our ideals of working. And so it's not because they are less of a good person or they are incompetent. Maybe they have some other things going on in their team, in their life. So again, empathy. Try to picture yourself in the other people's shoe, and and often it's people send one email and then they put their hands up. I told them 1 month ago, they never returned on my email, and it's their fault. It's never like that. If you truly believe in something, then try push forward, and it really takes 20 times to get an idea through. But it's important how you communicate or how you perform that 20 times. Like pondering the same words, the same sentences over and over again will not get adoption. If you are rolling out a process, or if you just try to convince your teammate to use this framework or that framework, just saying that, hey man, this is the best thing you've ever seen, just not gonna work. If you know this guy, he wasn't able to really get adoption on his process. But basically the idea here is that you definitely have a message, and try to distill that into a very core thing, and try to rephrase that every time to basically match the context you are communicating in. Every time from a slightly different angle, sometimes educational, sometimes just repeating the message, and I'm sure you will get better adoption of your ideas. I'm sorry if it doesn't work after 20 times, even if you did everything like that, then it's probably your idea is bad. So it's nothing can be fixed with communication, so I'm sorry. By the way, I read this in a book called How Google Works. It's a very nice read, I think. It shows some, highlights some of the internal workings of the early Google days. It offers some nice tactics, like how you can really communicate with people and get change through in an organization. Another point I'd like to talk about is it's important to build an institutional memory. What mean by that? It's basically When a company is small, it's individual people's mind is where the knowledge is stored. But as you move forward, the organization starts to live on its own. So it's people come and go. Even key people might leave the company, but the company will survive. Even though you think that if that guy leaves, everything is doomed, it's never the case. And to prepare for those situations, basically, you have to build basically a common knowledge in the company. So it's an anti-pattern. I was Falcon's institutional memory for a very long time, and while I admit it was a very nice and heartwarming feeling, it's not a way to scale. After a few years, I noticed that it's not going to scale. So in the last 2 years of my journey at Falcon, I try to promote every kind of communication which was scalable. Like basically how you can scale communication. You write things down. It's not rocket science, but for a fast-growing startup, when you just crunch out features one after the other, documentation is not necessarily the key thing you are doing. And I'm not meaning like communication like the very corporate, please fill out this form if you want to release a piece of software, or please have this, like document every single function in your code because that's the standard. I mean like some lightweight ways to do it. And I found that for a technical people, the only thing which is very natural, it's everything which is in their code base, in their repository. So I'm a huge proponent, huge fan of Markdown. You probably know Markdown. It's a very simple text-based format. Also, I like text-based drawing tools, like where you define what should be drawn on the screen, and the tool basically draw it up for you. If you had an academic background, you probably know GraphViz, but there are some other tools. There are plenty of these tools out there. You can create basic UML diagrams, like a sequence diagram, in text, 5 lines, and it's good because when you share it with your team, they don't have to have Visio installed or Enterprise Architect, if that's a thing, or some web-based tool. But it's basically it's clear text. You can easily and it's very accessible for everyone. And if it's only one people who are maintaining this, it's not going to work. It has to be democratized. It has to be everybody who notice a change or notice a bad thing in the documentation. That person changes right away. Wikis could be a good place, although their format is a little bit cumbersome and old school. And we tried MediaWiki at some point, but the whole experience was very 2003, which is not very web. Then we succeeded better with a Markdown-based tool. I can't recall the name right now, but it's much better. So basically, as a technical person, I think the most important thing that every code repository has at least basic documentation. If you clone the repo, then how you get started locally, how you release it, and just a simple overview of what is really going on in that code base. I'm a huge fan of Docker. It really creates a standard platform of running things locally and later on production. I'm sure you have heard a little bit of it. And of course, automation and scripting is another way to document things. You should never if you have a very risky operation, it's not just give it to the DBA or give it to the guy who can perform this operation for me, but you better automate it because it actually documents very well all the quirks and all the other things which could go wrong. And just one cautionary note here: if you automate things or script things, try to eliminate first. So don't write a script for every task which come up once, but try to first not do things and then later on automate them. Yeah, so what can you document? A lot of things. You're probably familiar with documenting your user stories. Definitely you do that. But is your vision documented? Is your culture documented? I'm sure your process is documented, but is there a reason why the process is like it is? Because a process always shows knowledge in an organization, but that knowledge often get lost when key people leaves, for example, or when just it was created so long ago that that nobody even remembers why it was done. Sometimes some people just do it because they were on a conference call after an outage and they had to come up with something that I'm going to put this in our process, and nobody remembers why it is there. I think I'm going to talk about the vision and culture part, but it is very important. If you document your vision and culture, it will help making decisions in situations. Yeah, there are a few examples. Actually, I'm liking the culture of companies which are like remote first. Some companies are not like usual companies that you go to work, but they are scattered around the globe, and those people are lacking face time, typically because of time zone issues and all the things. So they have to come over it somehow. And I just saw an example recently last week. Travis CI. It's a testing solution. Basically, they document their culture on GitHub. Every change to their processes or culture, it's a pull request. It's basically anybody can go there. They can file a pull request. There is a long discussion, and at some point they gonna merge it or they just gonna close it. For example, I think it was their salary policies, should it be public or not public, was running for a year, and ultimately they didn't opt for it, but it was a very nice way to basically show everyone that everybody can participate, and later on people can look up like why it is like this today. Actually, I did a similar thing at Falcon. Code review is a central piece of any team collaboration. So I wanted to have a code review policy. We had a code review policy, but it wasn't documented. And when new people came in, they didn't know, like, so do we not do? It was a little bit fuzzy. And I followed the same process. I opened a pull request and then had people basically commenting on it for like a 2 months period. And it was a very nice experience because people spoke up who have never spoken up before. And I was able to identify those key people who were driving actually the adoption like team-wide. That was a very nice experience. On a very extreme side, I just saw that Stripe, the payment company, had their full email service transparent. So any email you sent in the organization was public, which is a very extreme way to do it. But their reasoning is that if you do that, then every decision is, you can see why it was decided like that, and people really can follow and search the history, and when somebody new comes in, basically they can be up and running very fast. So this was my experience as well. When we started this, it was a lot of work, but 6 months later, when somebody came on board, 4 hours later, he was asking me about the key technical direction we are heading towards, and it was such a good feeling that I didn't have to sit down with this guy. And you know all that. Also, writing scales better. There is a point where you just can't be in all the rooms and all the discussions in the company. It's a sad thing for me, but sometimes you have to let things go. The next point I want to make is about culture. So what is culture? Can somebody like summarize it to me in? Okay.
The things you do without thinking about it.
Okay. So it's sort of a norm, like unwritten rules. Yes. Okay. Actually, like few slides earlier, I wrote that document your culture. So so it should be a written rules as well. So just my definition and many other people's definition is that it's basically the sum of the team's actions, the norm, what is promoted, what is cracked down. It's either by just norms in the team, like, hey man, this is not cool what you just wrote yesterday on that email, or basically there is a huge responsibility also in management. So if a manager sees something which is not cool and nobody speaks up, then the manager should speak up. I actually made some mistakes around this, and I think the most damage I've done to Falcon is basically like not addressing some underperforming people, and I was like setting some bad precedent that you can get away with just there are no consequences like whatever you do, which was definitely not true. I was just very green in my role, and I tried to find a very subtle way to deal with the situation. Obviously, it took more time than it should have. So basically, when you document your values or your culture, a very good thing you should think about is that imagine a person working late, working alone, and he has to make a decision, whether this is a very technical one or like a product decision or like a moral decision. It's basically, is your value statement helping this person to make that call? Google's "Don't be evil" is a very nice one, because whenever you are facing a tough question when it comes to data privacy and the like, it's very easy to make that call. So basically, the culture statement of your company is narrowing the playing field and allowing you to make faster decisions and decisions which are playing in the company's favor. At Falcon, we grew very fast. Just to my taste, I think we were documenting our values a little bit later than ideal. As you could see, like there was this big jump, and then we were sitting with the engineers and we were trying to figure out like how to implement this feature. And there was a huge debate about like whether we should go self-service or whether we should still include our customer success people in a certain onboarding process. And we were it was like a bike shedding kind of a discussion, but we were doing that for a week up until our CEO basically helped us just reiterating that we are a B2B company and our customer success team has an integral role in our success. So it was an easy decision ever since, but I was there with the company from basically day one, but still I couldn't make that decision myself. I wasn't sure anymore, like are we this company or that company? But a value statement later on helped me as well to basically act as I should act. Cool. One more point. Agile. I think this is home turf for you guys. So I'm an engineer. I don't have huge thoughts about Agile, but there is one thing very crucial to me when it comes to processes, and I just want to have a discussion with you guys. What do you consider the most important meeting, or the most important part of process in your Agile process? If you can call just one.
The demo.
The demo? Okay. Okay.
For the team building, I would say the retrospective.
Okay.
For the organization, I would say the demo.
Okay.
The vision.
Division. Okay. Cool. I liked your answer very much. I am more of a team builder, so for me, the retrospective was the most important in all the situations. It's basically I'm talking to different like young companies, and when they talk about their process, they all start off with like some hedging, like yeah, we are agile, but not by the book, not fully to the letter, and they like going into this very long talk. And I just always tell them like, don't, man, it's whatever works for you works, as long as you are true to the spirit of the agile principles. For me, it's not the letter of the law, it's more the spirit of being responsible to change. And for me, the retrospective is quite crucial part of that. Basically, I tell you why I have this. So recently I come across this word cadence, which is when I looked up in the dictionary, it is something weird about languages and music and all the things. Like, please allow me just call it like a rhythm, like with a very positive meaning that. basically, in the whole agile process, I like that there's a good cadence to all those meetings because it provides a lot of things. It separates things, like we are done with something, then we go into the next thing. I think that gives a lot of feel for progression. Also, I like the all these meetings because it builds some accountability. Like people should be presenting something on the demo, or people should show up for a stand-up and all those things. But like coming back to the retrospective, I think there is one thing which this meeting brings is basically safety. So if somebody has something which is not working for him or her, there's always a safe place where this person can speak up. So it's not just building up and then at some point like comes out like there is no tomorrow, like a huge venting rant. But basically there is always a safe place where you can discuss this with your team, and everybody being grown up, finding a common solution for maybe like moving the stand-up from 8:30 to 11 o'clock or something like that could be worked out. This is the only technical topic here. How many are you familiar with the term continuous integration? Good, I like it. It's basically, it solves a lot of problems. There are very typical issues like if you don't do things in a continuous integration or continuous deployment way, like you have a code freeze or you have merge issues, and then suddenly there is this whole dance around releasing software, which is just shouldn't be there. So making sure that developers merge their code into the main line is very important because it solves problems early on. Basically, it doesn't amplify them. I also have a very important things to say here. Like I don't like coupling features. Every feature should be released independently. Not having like a huge test environment where like for 2 weeks QA goes nuts and then suddenly all kinds of scheduling issues come up. If you do things separately and in a more automated fashion, you definitely spare some of those things. Yeah, in just general, like remove gatekeepers, like let people start their servers in the cloud if they have to. Don't make people ask an operations person to allow them to start a new server. It's very crucial for me. I think I talked about it. It's not the DBA who takes care of the DB and the very risky change scripts, but you should better automate it and then let everyone do that. Again, if you can remove a communication stream, I think you should better remove it. I couldn't find a good technical thing here, but for example, like if someone wants to buy a book, then just make sure that they have a practical way to do so. So it's not like sending an email and then I approved and then some purchasing person buys the book. It's really just not a good way to do things. And why I'm saying that don't have gatekeepers? Why remove communication which can be removed? Because people, as I noticed, they don't like conflicts. They don't like that much talking to people, or at least people they don't know that well, or people they have like some prejudice, or those guys at support or those guys at those operation guys are just not cool guys, because people will find a way how to not talk to them. This is the mandatory Conway's law reference. How many of you know Conway's law? Okay, a few of those. Basically, it says that the software you produce is the exact print, or so the layout of your software is basically exactly the same as your organization is structured. So if there are people who are talking every day and they are good buddies, they're probably gonna they're gonna work in the same code base. They're gonna be very agile. They're gonna make things very quickly. Probably their code is gonna be a little bit more spaghetti and all the things, but their hive mind is allow you to move fast. On the other hand, if two departments don't like each other, then they suddenly start talking about very heavy contracts, very strict APIs, and basically the finger pointing starts like, man, I'm completely complying to the API documentation. It's your fault. You have to make it work. We have a team in Budapest, or we had a team in Budapest, and so I thought that our team is like a very nice guys and they talk to each other, but this little thing, the geographical separation, like already made people not talk to each other, and then it was all about who did the right thing, where was the specification, and all those things. So Conway's law basically suggests that you should architect your organization in a way that your software how your software so exactly so I think you should look this up. It's this is a key principle, like how we architected Falcon's many teams. When you saw the scaling, for like until like midpoint we had only one team. There were like 20 guys in, and it was like very chaotic. And later on we had like 5 or 6 product teams working on their own product. Yeah, and yes, it was by functionality. We were very proud of having a unified platform, but still we had like tabs on the top. One was dealing with like inbound traffic, like your Facebook feed, your Instagram feed, and then you moderate and you answer questions. One was very marketing heavy, like your content plan, and every team basically owned their product. They had a product manager, and they also owned their code and technical architecture as well. For a very long time, yes. I think, as I mentioned, like until halfway, people were just flocking around certain key projects we are having. There was not a lot of ownership. That certainly made ownership in all those teams. Now that structure is in place for 2 years. Right now, I'm more worried about the siloing, like how do you work cross teams? How do you make sure that your data is not a dead end in one product? And I think the guys these days are talking about this. Some teams are very going around, like our front-end developers, they like to go around a lot. So for them, it's like so every team was like a cross-functional team. You had 1-2 backend guy, 1-2 front-end guy, DevOps, all the things. But they had like a so initially we wanted to have like a designer or a UX in every team, as just too many people. And then I think the people who have the most struggle with the setup are the UXers and designers, because they are always wanted cross teams. So I don't think we have nailed that setup.
Yeah, and I guess it's right. You say you have many products, but it was on one same platform, so it should kind of get the same feeling.
Exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah,
No.
How big was the team? You said the first team was like 20 people.
Yeah. Yes.
But when you scale it up to the product team.
Later on, it was like 5 to 8, depending on how many.
And the dedicated roles in that team was I cannot remember.
Sorry.
And the dedicated roles.
Yeah, so like a minimal team looked like one front end, one back end, a product owner, and
We have programs on team.
there was a point where we had per team, but now it's more like one product owner like takes 2-3 teams. As you could see, we grew very fast, and later there was some consolidation around that idea. So it wasn't necessary to have a product owner per team. Closing thoughts. I just saw a very nice tweet storm by a guy called Martin Hedlund. He has a very Swedish name. Maybe he's Swedish. I'm not sure. But it was a nice summary of a lot of leadership thoughts that I like as well. So I think we touched this. so basically, as a product owner or a manager or in all these kind of roles, basically you have to like repeat yourself so many times, and for some people this comes naturally, for some others don't. But basically, repeating the overall goals, connecting to the actual task at hand is always provides the big picture, the context for a person or for an engineer. So this is where I fell short a bit. So as like managers or as like product owners, it's not your job to suggest solutions or like define solutions. You just bring the problem, you just put it on the table, you provide all the context available for the team to make the right call. Sometimes people like complaining about like working with engineers is like herding cats. They all have their ideas and all the things, but I have a very idealistic view on this. If you provide the same information as you possess, those people will more often than not will fall into the same conclusion as you. So it's make all the information available and refrain from suggesting solutions. This is my favorite as well. It's like, hey, these guys want to rewrite everything. It's gonna take only 6 months. Is this? But they're gonna enjoy and they're gonna stay motivated and all the things. Like, is this the right thing to do? No, never. Again, if you provide the right context, those guys as well will realize that rewriting that project, that product is probably not the best way you spend your time. If they are aware of at least some of the business goals and some of the things on the horizon, they're gonna realize that working with sales, working with support is much more fun than re-architecting everything. This is just more of a management-y thing. It comes very hard to people to actually fire someone, but basically if you have this thought, you're thinking of firing someone or don't know what to do with someone, you better just fire the guy. And it's the next day it's gonna be all better for everyone. And then it's also true that it's also sometimes more brutal than it should be. Okay, that was it. I hope you had some fun and got some ideas.